welcome to the CMO Fractional CMO Podcast. I really didn't think through what I was about to say there, but welcome to another episode. This is episode, I think I'm up to about 149 or 151 episodes that we've done so far. It's all kind of falling a bit out of order, but if you've listened to any of these before, thank you, and thank you for coming back again. Otherwise, if this is your first time, then welcome. My name is Simon Dell. I am the CEO of CMO. That's spelled CEMOH.com. If nobody knew how that was spelled, we are Australia's largest fractional marketing network. I was going to say the world's, and we probably are, but I don't need anyone to call me out on that one. So if you want to find out a little bit more about us, CMO.com. If you want to connect with me, you can find me at Simon at CMO.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn or Instagram or all those other various channels. Also on TikTok as well. I seem to have garnished somewhat of a following on TikTok. I don't quite know how that happened, but it has happened. So the last thing is, if you enjoy listening to us today or watching us wherever you are digesting your podcast material, please rate and review us and tell us how absolutely fantastic we are. I have with me today a lady by the name of Renee Smith, who is down in somewhere regional Victoria, and she will tell us all about that. So first of all, welcome to the show, Renee. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Simon.
Now, for everyone's context, Renee and I had a conversation on a previous video chat podcast type thing that we actually only used internally into the CMO community, and we had such an interesting conversation that we thought we would do it again, but we would do it in a more public forum this time. So thank you for last time, and I think first things first, let's tell everybody a little bit about you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to come back and share this in a second conversation. So I have worked in marketing. I've been in the industry for 30 years, which shows a level of age and experience. Building and positioning and transforming brands. I've worked in 17 different countries. I've worked in the fashion, retail, lifestyle, outdoor, action sports, wellness, manufacturing sectors. I lived and worked in Europe for 10 of those. I worked in content, sports and education. I've led global brands and category expansions. I repositioned iconic Australian brands. I was fortunate to be one of the 5 executives working on the Cotton On body brand. We doubled the brand from $150 to $300 million in 2 years. I launched Swatch Retail ahead of the Olympic Games. I delivered global loyalty programs in the UK for Debenhams, Nectar, and Perks for Cotton On. I'm currently a CMO of a $500 manufacturing business in Australia. And in the new year, I'm transitioning to fractional CMO work on what I'm calling marketing growth architecture. So I'll be working with founders, CEOs, and heads of marketing to deliver on a 90-day growth program. And we might talk about a little bit more. We might have the chance to talk about that.
Yes, we will do.
But that's that's me.
Cool. And look, I think you've mentioned a couple of them there, but as you said, you have worked with some fantastic brands. Also spent some time in France. I did mean to mention that last time. How is your French these days?
It's not so good these days.
It's probably not. You probably don't bump into that many French people down in regional Victoria, do you?
There actually are a few down in regional Victoria, which is odd. But yeah, they are. I think they come for the surf.
And do you practice your French on them? And then
I do try.
They do that grimace thing when you talk to a French person in French, and then you're butchering their poor language and sort of.
My children did that to me.
Oh well, look. And I think you and I had a good conversation last time. I think there is a number of things. I was going to say there's a number of things that I disagreed with that I thought you said, or not necessarily disagreed with, just wanted to challenge. And it's funny that I look back on your experience and I go, I must be a complete idiot to be challenging you, given your experience versus my experience. and so either I'm an idiot or some sort of glutton for punishment. But we'll talk about that later on. The first thing I wanted to kind of start off on is this fractional journey. It's suddenly, I think personally, it has suddenly sort of bloomed into life in the marketing space in the last 2-3 years. You could probably argue longer than that, maybe since COVID. Why do you think it's changed so much in the past few years?
I think that the marketing landscape is shaping this. So I think we're looking at a landscape today, which obviously is in this current economic environment, we're really challenged. So I think 69% of CMOs are now reporting significant pressures on their budgets. The ground beneath the marketing framework's really changed. 83%, I read, of CMOs say that their role personally has changed more in the last 3 years than in the last decade.
Right.
And I think it's changing as a result of the marketing landscape. It's been very fragmented, and we're looking at businesses who want cost reductions. They want CEOs who believe, marketing's obviously got to drive sales, not just brand. I know marketing colleagues that I talk to, many of us are looking at, well, what does the restructure look like in 2026? What are the new roles? What are the roles that we need? It's not just the traditional marketing roles that we're looking at anymore. And I think it's as a result of the landscape. Businesses wanting more, paying less, they're wanting strategic insights, and because of the increased role of AI and automation in this process, it's actually the marketing smarts we need, less so the execution. So we're looking at systems which will deliver on volume and speed, but you need the marketing smart to drive that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Sorry, it's interesting you said there that just to sort of paraphrase something you said, that there's less. So you're saying there's less need potentially for strategic support versus more for actionable.
No, I'm saying the opposite.
The other way around.
I'm actually saying there's more need for strategic support now. Yeah, and I think CEOs are recognising that, and they're looking at marketing leads to be the marketing smart, and the execution piece. There's a lot of manual tasks, but with automation and AI, we can remove that stalemate. It becomes, we've got speed, we've got volume, we need the smarts. So how do we deliver on the smarts? And I think at the same time, the customer is really expecting more. Customer expectations are rising. They want more personalised experiences. They expect us to know them more intimately. They'll switch brands more quickly if they have a negative digital experience. So we're at that forefront where inside organisations it can be really overwhelming, and the marketing function has become fragmented across all of the aspects: digital, customer experience, CRM. They're looking at brand performance, and I feel like that transition is now moving us to a new landscape where the CMO is super relevant because they can augment, they can orchestrate and conduct that space, if you like. They become the conductor of bringing all these systems together. And once you have your brand sorted, then you've got your brand and your brand tone of voice. You know who you are and what you are. Then you just need the system. So
do you think there is? Look, I don't disagree with you that there's been there is a change, and there's and I think everything you say is completely right there. I just my question mark on that would be that the strategic input. I think obviously the strategic input now is massively different than it was 5 years ago. How much more can we do that's different? I'm not phrasing that question particularly well, but I kind of feel most brands, be they in a B2C, B2B space, most marketing tactics have been tried and tested. are we getting anything
Why is it
new,
different now?
or is it we're just regurgitating old ideas and
No,
repackaging
I
them?
don't think it is. I feel like we're
Okay.
at that stage where we've got the data. So I think traditionally, in traditional marketing models, the data centers lived in IT and the technology solutions lived in IT and insights teams maybe lived in IT. It just obviously depends on the nature of the structure of the business
Yeah.
and how traditional they might be. But I think that the changing role of the lead marketer in the organisation now is to design those architecture systems that support the strategy. So it's taking the insight, it's taking the marketing comms, it's taking then the systems and bringing it all together. So I'm in my mind, I'm thinking, well, we're regrouping, we're restructuring what marketing looks like, and bringing a more cohesive, if you like, consumer experience to market.
Do you think there's because traditionally in businesses, it's all been very siloed. Um,
Yep.
Marketing, sales, HR. Do you think we're seeing a change that marketing is perhaps I was going to use the word infecting, but I think that's I don't, that's kind of what I mean, but not in a negative way. It is kind of is becoming more relevant and more important to
Yes.
some of those other departments, to the point where perhaps when you look at the C-suite of a company, the CMO, or the fractional CMO, should be having more input in the way that businesses are run versus the other members of the
100%,
C-suite.
100%, 100%. And I think that over the last, probably 5 years, the seat at the table around the C-suite, there's been a marketing head, but in some businesses that I've seen, that it sits under a GM. But I
Mm.
think the relevance of bringing marketing back to the C-suite table in a really profound way is that they are across functions now. They do have the foresight across the technology and how the insight's going to inform the marketing solution. And it's not just allowing our digital partner or our head of IT to make those choices and decisions.
Mm.
It's about, how does the Marcom or the Martech or the tech stack deliver for a marketer? And I think that conversation is so much more relevant than it ever was. And I think that businesses are recognising that and changing, starting to look at that as a real, I think it's a problem, but I think it can be easily solved. And then I think the rise of the fractional movement here is that businesses are realising that, once you've got a really strong brand framework and you know who you are, and I'd like, if we have capacity to talk about that, but the value of having a brand that is really strongly resonated in purpose, who knows who it is, has its values, then you can create easily the tone of voice and the brand conversation using using tools that AI now gives us to create bulk content and deliver it at speed. So I'm not saying that we don't have roles, we absolutely have roles, but I feel that the role of the CMO, the fractional CMO, is way more strategic and design orientated in a solution than we've ever looked at marketing to deliver.
Mm. We did a podcast last week with three other fractional CMOs and an accountant. We basically ganged up on him for about 45 minutes. But one of the final questions that I posed as the sort of closing comment to the podcast was, if you turned around to a CEO and asked them which member of the C-suite, the CMO or the CFO, was responsible for the company's growth,
Mm-hmm.
who do you think that should be?
Mm-hmm.
And I think unequivocally it should be
Mm-hmm.
CMO. But again, when you look at a lot of companies, that senior role, that senior growth role, isn't round the table, isn't sitting in the right meetings, isn't
Yeah,
isn't party to the right decisions. And I
correct.
think
Yeah.
it's then interesting. I think, and just remind me, how did you describe yourself at the start of this podcast?
What did I say?
Is it the growth marketer?
Marketing growth architect. I described it as.
Marketing growth architect.
Mm.
And I wonder whether we all ought to go around and perhaps add the word growth into our titles to perhaps reinforce to
That's why we're here.
the rest of the business the point, why the fuck we're here. Because
Yeah,
I think the rest of the business doesn't, they joke that we're the colouring in department and things
that's
like
right.
that.
That's right.
Maybe there's a realignment for CMOs, realigning the CMO brand
Yeah.
to potentially be more effective in these businesses.
I agree with you. 100% agree with you. I mean, where our marketing ourselves is the hardest thing ever. And I do think that the role or I suppose the reputation of marketers around the table has been that colouring in department. They just spend money and have fun. And it depends what sort of a marketer you are, how performance and data driven you are. But I think that bringing that back to the C-suite, and actually I think the smart businesses in the future will recognise that the marketing function has such a key role to play in the strategic growth of an organisation, because it is across brand, performance, digital, user experience, automation. It's got insights, it's systems, and right now we're super busy just doing all of that stuff. And when I refer to it as the tugboat, where a tugboat, I want to move brands from being a tugboat to be a lighthouse. So a tugboat will pull and push, it will wear itself out. But if brands can be that lighthouse, that power of strength, they don't chase anyone, they shine, they radiate, they're visible, they're strong, they attract. If as marketers we can be that for the organisation, and our brands can be that, I think we're solving a lot of problems with inconsistency and problems with manual systems. So I think there's a real shift in marketing from what I would describe as effort to, architecture, activity to cohesion. And it's that streamlined nature of what we can bring to the table.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned the 90-day strategy. Talk to me a little bit about that. Give us an overview of that, of how you work when you talk about that.
Yeah, thank you. Well, this 90-day strategy came about because I was looking at organisations wanting to grow, and exactly what we spoke to just now, that landscape of how do we not increase resources or heads, how do we make more money, how do we do that on a budget, and what does it look like to grow is effectively the conversation that you could have with a founder or even a head of marketing or a CEO. And I think that what we're looking at is using, as I say, the marketing smarts, but then looking at how AI and automation can work in a 90-day growth plan. 90 days being effectively, you can plan, you can limit the focus, you can plan, you can effectively build and implement and start to measure results. So that's the reason for the time frame. But effectively what it does is look at the sales process and optimize and fill any gaps. It designs and architectures a plan to do that using a fully integrated CRM. It has a complete technical back end that I bring to the table with this. So it combines CRM, automation in email, sales pipelines, the whole kit and caboodle, and it develops what is a plan and a one-time build for an organisation, and then hands it back to them, teaches them how to use it, and then can walk away or can recommit to it in another 90 days. So you're establishing a really defined focus. We call it the LEAP framework, which is around limiting the focus, establishing the plan, building the assets, and then managing the performance. And that allows us to, like I say, be so single-minded. It allows us to really hyper-focus on performance and set really clear milestones. It allows us to build those and take the heavy lifting away from an organisation who doesn't have the time or doesn't want to invest the additional resources or doesn't have the tech solution. And then we hand it back to them, show them how to use it and set it up for them for success. So that's really what the program's designed to do. And it's an ongoing program. It can be once the 90 days is established, then the organisation can continue to use that and have access to the system behind it.
Okay. And I assume obviously it's being effective where you've been using it. Otherwise, what?
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
you're not going to say it's not, but
No,
Yes.
this is a program that I haven't just invented. I am
Yeah.
adapting for the Australian market, but it's a program that's been used in around the world, but particularly in the States, and but by large businesses, by startups, through to enterprise solutions to deliver millions and hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue for businesses. This particular program won the Deloitte Technology Fastest Growing Tech of the Year in North America. It won the World Future Award as the best sales and marketing platform. It was awarded the EY Entrepreneur of the Year. So it's got all of it's absolutely got the success markers on it.
It's obviously the way, I mean, you must see this, that when you walk into a business, the way that businesses are using data or not, invariably not using data. Do you think that's one of the key components of success in terms of, transforming a business in terms of how they use that customer data?
100%.
And what, I guess, I'm trying to formulate my question here. What is it that what is it, if they're looking for the basics, if a company is starting out doing this, what are you suggesting is, simple, perhaps easy, low-hanging fruit when it comes to data that they could be analyzing or collecting? Where do they start?
Well, I think it depends on their customer journey. So whatever that touch point is for the customer, understanding your customer, I think, is where it starts. Who is your customer, and what's their value, what's their average order value, what's their lifetime worth. So I think AOV, but and with that comes, is there a CRM behind it? Who are my customer segments? And then effectively, what are the opportunities with each of those segments, and where are the biggest, the lowest hanging fruit is where we would always start. We always look at what they've done successfully in the past. What's been the most effective campaign and why. And whether we re-engineer something or we fill the gaps, maybe it's just a lead gen that doesn't have it's like a leaking bucket. So once you fill the hole in that bucket, then suddenly you've got an amazing performing campaign, and you can re-execute it. So I think starting with what's your customer, what do you know about your customer's average value, and how are you going to increase that, essentially? Like, what's your lifetime worth of that customer? And without a CRM, that's super difficult.
Yeah. And look, I think, I mean, this is going to sound, the most obvious marketing statement that's ever been made, but it's a lot easier to, sell something to somebody that's purchased from you before 100%. Than it is to go and find it. That number, I think it depends what you read and where you read it, but people sort of say, you can spend 10 times more trying to get a new customer than it is.
Yeah, I think it's 3 to 5. I don't know. Yeah, but absolutely, 100%. And if you've got a database, I mean, that's gold. They're customers who already have a predisposition to your brand. They've signed up for a reason. It's about how you communicate with them effectively. Yeah. And I think that given the increasing demands of consumers now, they want us to understand them. And I think in our last conversation we spoke, and I'll bring it up again, around personalisation versus individualisation. I think we've been through this era of personalisation, and to me that was delivering the right message at the right time in the right channel. But we're moving to this new era where consumers are demanding more. They expect us to know them more intimately. They expect us to know what their desires, motivations are, the stage of their life cycle, their stage in the decision-making process. And they expect us to be able to deliver quickly. Speed is queen, if you like. If you can deliver within 5 minutes, you have a 900% higher chance of conversion. And so when we're looking at delivering back on them, then we have that opportunity.
Yeah, it's. I think this was one of those moments that you and I sort of disagreed. Last time was this idea that the customer. I often feel there's a lot of statistics that come out of marketing, and I feel there's a lot of statistics that come out of ad agencies and research agencies, and the numbers and everything are almost there in order to sell those statistics to CMOs who can stand up in front of CEOs or boards or whatever and justify their actions because somebody said that 93% of people wanted more personalization or individualization or whatever it is. I sometimes feel that we spend too much time, or we're too reliant on those numbers, and sometimes I feel it's probably the wrong thing to say in a podcast like this, that the consumer doesn't generally know what they want. I think the consumer. I have the belief the consumer knows what they don't want, but they don't necessarily know what they want. Does that make sense?
I do understand the sentiment of what you're saying, yeah. I do, but I do believe you think about yourself, you know when you're making a purchase decision, fundamentally what you want, what you're looking for, and your expectations, I think. So maybe you could say they don't necessarily know what they want, but could you frame it that their expectation is the brand will know what they want?
Yeah, I think probably that's where I would be more comfortable agreeing with you,
Yeah.
to say they have an expectation of a delivery of a service of a product and things like that.
Correct. Correct.
But that expectation, I think, is quite fluid, and I think it's fluid across product. I think it's fluid across services. I think it's fluid in time of the day. I mean, you sit there and go, well, when you go and get a coffee in the morning, you'd be happy to wait for 5 minutes to have the coffee made because that's your expectation. The place is busy, it's the time of the day. But if you walk into a pub at 5 o'clock and it's less busy, you expect to be served straight away. These are both very, very similar transactions, but they're often guided by lots of different external things. And I sometimes wonder whether companies spend too much time chasing this idea that the customer is all knowing and all good. Whereas if they sat there and just went, let's deliver a level of service and quality and product that we're confident in, and the build it and they will come.
Yeah. I 100% agree with that. It's not that I don't think it's that you're looking over your shoulder at your competitor. I always felt that the best brands, and I as a marketer always felt like that as in my career, is that I was never watching anyone to see what else they were doing. I was in my own lane just doing what was resonating with me, what was on point. And I think the best brands in the world do that. And they're consciously not conscious about the direction they're going, and there's strength in that, 100%.
I think there's too many brands, and I can certainly think of one off the top of my head right now that spent perhaps so many years self-analyzing themselves, and the one that jumped straight to mind for me, it'd be sort of from your background, would be somebody like Maya, that I feel has spent so much time trying to analyze everything that they're doing and the people that are coming in and all those kind of things, when perhaps they've forgotten what the purpose of their business was to start with. And I often I've had this discussion with somebody in a retail marketing background, retail marketing or retail advisor, and I kind of went, shopping department stores in the day were places of, sounds wanky, but discovery and delight.
I know, wasn't that amazing? And what have they become?
Absolutely. You go in there going, what am I going to find today?
100%.
And I think they've just become so over analytical about what they're doing and where things are placed and how much things are priced and this and this that they've lost the delight.
I agree with you. I do agree with you. And I think in this environment where actually experiences matter, and brands want connections, they want to resonate with the brand that they're shopping in, they want that delight in store, and they want to be wowed. What an amazing environment. That's just ideal. If you're walking into a department store, it's just, it's the foundation for delight, But I think that in that case of a, department stores really started to look at the square meterage, their return on investment per square meter, and whatever was delivering in that volume as opposed to what was going to be entertaining, and potentially that's where they lost their path.
And I also think they lost their path because they became so reliant on the concession businesses wanting their piece of pound of flesh and
That's what I mean.
um,
I mean, it became about square meter,
yeah,
return on
yeah.
square
But
meter.
I
And
also
which
think that,
concession was going to deliver to that, regardless of what the product mix was.
yeah.
It was, yeah,
I think the other thing is they also forgot that lots of people shop in different ways, especially
yeah.
that male female demographic. Men shop in a different way to women shopping in a different. And that's a massive generalization, but generalizations are generalization because they're generally true. So I think those are sort of some examples that jump straight to mind. On the flip side, obviously
Yeah.
you've been doing this for a long time, and I don't mean to
Be
point
rude.
out that in a negative way. Who do you think does this? Who do you think does this well? Who do you think is using the ideas that you've sort of spoken about today and is actually delivering well?
Dare I say it? I do think Cotton On do it really well.
Okay.
Yeah. Um,
Okay. So then my question is, why do they do it well?
I think they know their customer.
Okay.
Yeah, they know their customer and they engineer their experience to their customer.
Okay. Is that why I probably feel uncomfortable going into a Cotton On as a
Maybe.
51-year-old man?
Yeah. And it's really they've really sharpened the saw on it. So yeah, I think they do it well. I think other brands I think Grilled does it well as well. You walk into, I was in Grilled only last week with my son, and I was just looking at the environment and everything about it. From the language on the menu, the celebration of whether it's photos of cattle on the wall or a local chicken or their community program or whatever it is, every aspect of it is considered, and it's cohesive and consistent and clear. And I think that brands that do line up those C's do really well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I think the problem, one of the problems is, and this is not the time and place for this, is this, late stage capitalism where everyone's beholden to a shareholder and delivering value for the shareholder. Whereas if you look at somebody from Grilled's perspective, it's delivering value and delight to, my 7 and 9-year-old just love going in Grilled. Sure, they like going in McDonald's as well, but we've got now to the point when Grilled probably, if I gave them a choice, Grilled would
Grill
come out on
wins.
top. You
Why do you
know,
think that is? What do they like about it that they don't get?
um, I think it's because I think quality of the food.
Yeah.
I think it is a much more our Grilled where we're at is pretty more of a social environment as well. When we go down there, it's busy, and it's families sitting around tables. It's quite noisy. They like to do the little bottle tops in the local things. We always go down there with a board game. So we'll always take a game
That's
because
cool.
that's then become part of the ritual is, oh, what game are we taking with us? Um, and so it's Grilled have sort of partly through us, but partly through Grilled themselves have created this ritual, and and I see it with Grilled because that even flipping the spoon once they've served you your
Yeah.
food and things like that. Um,
Yeah.
it's that ritualization of the experience that I think has led to success, and I see that in other businesses where they've ritualized a certain part of it and created experience out of that.
But it starts with the brand. They know their brand. They know their customer and they know their
Yeah.
brand. Starts with the customer and starts with the brand. So, and everything, it's like a ripple effect. Everything grows from there. And so they know that when they talk in a certain way. And I think what we get when we walk into that environment is we feel a sense of, we know the brand, we feel comfortable there, we feel a sense of belonging and community. And aside from the food, then that's what we're going there for. And the
Yeah.
fact that the community program just reinforces that.
Yeah.
And it's clever because it's multi-layered, you know. I mean, you're talking to it's touching on business and community and mums and dads and kids, and then they have those activations which the kids love to collect.
Yeah. It's funny. I did a mentoring session week ago, 2 weeks ago, with a young woman who had her first fast food store, and she was very adamant that she was going to turn this fast food store into an experience,
Yep.
into to have an emotional connection. And now, unfortunately, I had about an hour to talk to her about this, so I'm like, well, you know, I could see her passion. She was a long way off from where she needed it to be to create that emotional, that emotional bond. But she actually asked me. She said, because we talked about the stages of, brand is the ABCDEF model that I often use. And with F being forgotten and A being adorer.
Okay.
And she said to me, "What brands do you adore?" And that was a good question to me, because I'm relatively cynical, but there are some brands that I really adore out there. And the one that I mentioned to the point of this conversation was Guzman and Gomez, because that I think appealed to me as a target market, as a customer. My kids like going to Guzman and Gomez, but not as much as Grilled,
Yeah.
because it's a different brand proposition, it's a different experience.
Yeah.
It
And I
feels,
think that
feels different.
what we see now is that customers, and I know the cynical side of you will say this is a bit of a, dare I say it, wank, but customers are looking now, they want to shop with brands whose values they can align to. So if a brand has, a perspective and their values, and they're clear around what they are and they're purpose-led, then it makes it so much easier for the customer to want to shop with them.
Yeah, yeah. I think that was the point where that I think I probably differed from you when you said customers want to shop with someone, with a brand whose values they share.
Yeah.
I don't think I think values is the wrong word.
Okay.
And we may have said this last time, I can't remember, but I have definitely had this conversation with other people. I don't think values is the right thing anymore. I think it was when Simon Sinek was sitting there going, we all start with the why, and everyone was like, oh my God. I think the right word now is vibe, right? And I think I want to shop with a brand, and I know I might be like splitting hairs with this. I want to work with brands that share my vibe.
Yeah.
The values to me
It's the
is
same
like,
thing. It's the same thing. We're just
but
talking around
is it though?
how does
Is
it
it?
resonate? What
I,
makes you feel that you belong, that you can connect, that you understand this brand, they understand you?
Values to me is a descriptor that sort of says, I believe in. I don't know. Values feel moral. Values
Yep.
feel like I believe in, human rights and all
Yeah.
those kind of things. And I
Yeah.
believe in protecting the environment. Values feel fluffy and but vibe is more
A feeling.
emotional, I think.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think if grilled, I think if you look at grilled and go, what are its values versus, and I think if you look on its menu, right,
Yeah.
grilled has all these things about where the food's coming from, and it's all this and this and this, and those to me
So
are
they
values.
don't, and they don't scream, these are my values. They don't have to. They say we support local. So that's, we care about the beef. Whatever it is they're saying, they're expressing their values in a way that is digestible by a consumer.
Yeah, but I don't think that's a vibe. And we could probably argue this till the cows come home, to throw a beef joke in there as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
But
That's good.
I think vibe is much more impromptu,
Well, you're talking about
yeah.
vibe as the personality of a brand,
I think,
the
yeah, I
essence of
think,
the brand, the
yes,
personality of the brand.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think personality and values are two different things. I have a set
Yeah.
of values and I have a personality,
Mhm.
and they're different things. And I
Mhm.
think for many years, every brands have gone, well, everybody wants to know our values. And I'm like,
Mhm.
no, I don't think they do. I think they want to know your personality.
I suppose that what I'm trying to draw the line between is that yes, in the past we would have said that's just a value, but now
Mm,
it's about how the brand behaves,
mm,
and that is a direct reflection of their personality,
mm.
and so how they behave is that vibe that you're talking to,
Yep.
and what that might just be a different way to look at it, but
Yeah.
that I think we're saying the same thing. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes we
Look,
yeah.
yeah, and I think it's a relatively, yeah, it's not necessarily a moot point, but
No.
I think if another good example would be, I think McDonald's, who've lost their vibe completely,
Yeah.
and
I
that's
don't
when
know.
I
I don't
look at
go there.
no. Well, no, but see that's why you should, Renee. You should go into. I want you see there's your challenge for next week, Renee. Is to go and sit and have a McDonald's because I'm not going to ask you how old
Not going
you
to
are,
happen.
but I think you and I grew up in the same era where
Yeah.
McDonald's was like a special occasion treat type thing, and it
Saturday
was
night, actually.
absolutely, you know, but
Right. And a
and
block
you
of Cadbury.
yeah, but
Hmm.
you look forward to that, but
You
nobody
do.
looks forward to going to a McDonald's anymore.
I don't know. I actually disconnect and I disassociate. So I don't know. I do see that. I still am surprised that they have customers.
I think you have to go. I think you have now made a case that you have to go to McDonald's next week and have a Big Mac, and then we do another podcast where we'll
Okay,
just call it Renee's visit to McDonald's.
Renee's visit to
Um,
Macca's, what did she think about? And look, I mean,
Renee
but
reports
if
back
you're
from
talking about
McDonald's.
brand, they are clearly a leader in branding. They've always been. Coke, McDonald's have always been the celebrated leaders.
They have, but then you look at something like, and I saw this analysis the other day of Five Guys. I don't know if you've ever eaten at Five
No,
Guys, which is
I think that's
it's
in
another
Queensland.
It's an American burger chain.
Yeah, they're in Queensland. I don't know they're down here.
No, yeah, they're up. I think they're up here, but them In and Out Burger, they're the ones that sort of, I would say, new generation fast food burger restaurants from America. But
Yep.
the Five Guys brand is just, it's making money hand over fist.
Yeah.
It's insane when you looked at, I think their turnover was something like $600 million on the back of 250 restaurants. And I divided that down and just went, shit, these guys are making 5-6 grand a day per restaurant. And then you go, well, if it's 5-6 grand a day and it's 25, let's say everyone's spending $25 in there, they're just getting just the footfall through that is massive. But I think with those brands, there's a loyalty. People still want to go back. You know, like there is with Grilled. They want to go back. They want to experience it
And I
again.
think that experience, if I could just touch on joy and the resonance
Yep.
of joy in this conversation, because I think that in the environment, the world environment and the economy that we're in, customers are looking, they want more happiness and more joy, and they're resonating with brands that bring that. So, we talk about radical optimism, and how do we be the brand that brings joy to the customer, and what problem are we solving, and how are we making sure they have fun. So I think it's, joy is and potentially what you're experiencing when you go there is joy.
Yeah.
It can be quite as simple as that. Yeah, good food, but what's around it? Well, you've had a good experience.
Yeah. I think that's the hardest vibe to deliver, I think, is joy.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'll leave this sort of with a comment, but I remember someone came to us about a year and a half ago, looking for us to help them recruit a customer service something, and he'd give me a job description, and we were talking on the phone, and he said, look, he goes, I want to hire someone who, when they have finished talking to the customer feels happier after having had a conversation with them. Now, that wasn't about outcome. It wasn't, he was like, we may have been able to help them, we may not have been able to help them. They may have had a complaint, they may have had an issue, whatever. He said that it's not about being happy with the outcome of the conversation. It's being happy because I've spoken to somebody else who feels who emits happiness, emits
Yeah.
joy, emits warmth.
Uh-huh.
And everything we've sort of spoken about today, I go, I think if you can get your brand to do that as much as you
Yeah.
can get one person on the phone to do that,
Yeah.
I think that's a real success factor.
I agree. And I think, the brands, like I say, have got they know who they are, and they're delivering on the joy proposition, and they're doing that in a meaningful way, and they're able to automate that process directly with the customer, then you're going to experience a growth, increased conversions.
Yeah.
It's natural.
Okay.
And then I think the question that I pose to businesses is, well, how are you going to do that? Because you're growing, how are you going to scale that? And I think in the world of AI and automation now, it gives us that ability to scale. So those one-on-one conversations just happen all day, and it happens in real time with the customer when they start their journey with the brand, instead of it being, okay, we're doing the EDM's going to go out Thursday morning. Well, okay, it can, but what if I don't want to wait till Thursday morning? What if I have just connected with the brand and I want to go now? And so the systems that I deliver in the 90-day program do that, and they can automate an entire customer journey. So I think, beyond 2026, businesses that have the capacity and the tech stack to do that will be the ones that succeed. And you layer on the love, the happiness, the joy, and the purpose. Well, I think you've got success.
Yeah. Look, I think we've both got objectives for next week. You to go and have a McDonald's.
I do go to McDonald's.
Me to go to Cotton On and try and feel happiness from a Cotton On. But Renee, thank you for your time again today. It's been a fantastic conversation.
I appreciate it.
Lastly, where do people find you if they want to talk to you?
Okay, I'm just in the process of getting a website up, so in the interim they can find me at CMO via you, or on LinkedIn.
Okay, cool. There's a couple of Renee Smiths in there, but there's only one with the cool glasses.
Yeah.
There's
not on CMO though. There's only one Renee Smith.
No. There's a couple of Renee Smiths on LinkedIn though.
Yeah.
But I think you're fairly easily identifiable there. So, thank you for your time today. Really
Thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
me. Appreciate the conversation.
Not a problem.
Take care. See ya.